Georgia, among likely voters, our brand new poll shows Trump at 48% support, Harris at 47% support. It's the flip in North Carolina. Harris is at 48% support among likely voters there. Trump at 47% support. 1 point races. Let's go
again. No clear leader.
No clear leader.
With just days to go, the race between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump is one of the closest and most intense in recent history. Polling data and predictions are all over the place, and everyone's wondering, who's going to come out on top? That's why we're here to break down everything you need to know, focusing on what the final map might look like and what it means for both candidates. As we're just days away from the election, the latest numbers are showing that this race is super close. According to sources like 538 and Newsweek, Kamala Harris has a slight national lead over Trump. We're talking about a difference of around 1.4 points, which means she's polling at 48.1%, while Trump is at 46.7%. That's close, really close.
Pennsylvania, dead heat tie, 48% to 48% in the biggest electoral college vote prize of the battleground map. In Michigan, slight edge for Kamala Harris, 48% to 43%. In Wisconsin, we also see a slight edge for Harris, 51% to 45%.
Now, why is this significant? Because in the U.S. presidential election, it's not just the national popular vote that matters, it's the electoral college. This system means a candidate can actually lose the popular vote but still win the presidency, like we saw with Hillary Clinton in 2016. So even though Harris might have a small lead in overall votes, Trump still has a solid shot at winning the electoral college. What does this tell us? The race is going to come down to a handful of key states that could swing either way. Both candidates know this, and that's why their campaigns are focusing so heavily on these areas. They're doing everything they can, rallies, ads, and last-minute voter outreach, to tip the scales in their favor. So, with Harris slightly ahead in national polls, but Trump holding his ground in critical states, it's anyone's game. For 2024, there are 7 main battleground states: North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. If you've been following elections for a while, you know these states are no strangers to the spotlight. They've been key players in past elections and are holding that status this time around too. Why are these states so crucial? Well, they have enough electoral college votes to tip the balance for either candidate. For example, Pennsylvania alone has 19 electoral votes. That's a big deal when you're trying to reach the magic number of 270. And what makes these states battlegrounds is that they don't lean too heavily Democratic or Republican. Their voting records show a lot of back and forth, depending on the year and the candidates. Right now, Trump is leading in 6 of these battlegrounds: North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Harris has the lead in Wisconsin. This sets the stage for a dramatic finish because a win in any one of these states could be a game changer. It's why both Harris and Trump are spending so much time campaigning there, sometimes even on the same day. So why is Trump doing well in these places? In states like Georgia and North Carolina, his support among rural and conservative voters remains solid. These areas have historically leaned Republican, and Trump's campaign has worked hard to energize these voters through targeted rallies and outreach. The focus has been on key issues like the economy, which resonates strongly with these communities, especially in the wake of economic challenges over the past few years. Michigan and Pennsylvania are a bit different. These states have significant working-class populations, particularly in areas that felt left behind during past economic shifts. Trump's messaging around jobs, manufacturing, and economic resurgence has found a receptive audience here. Now, where does Harris stand, and what's her strategy to win? Even though Trump has an edge in some battlegrounds, Harris isn't sitting back. She's leading in Wisconsin and holding solid ground in traditionally blue states like California, New York, and Illinois. These states are major contributors to her electoral college count, putting her on a path to reach 270 votes if she plays her cards right. What's working in Harris's favor? A few things. First, her campaign has been very strategic about targeting urban areas and key demographics. For example, in states like Pennsylvania and Michigan, Harris's team is doubling down on cities like Philadelphia and Detroit. Why? because these cities have large populations of Democratic voters, and a strong turnout here could tip the scale in her favor. Harris is also banking on her appeal to younger voters and minority groups. Her background and policy stances on issues like healthcare, climate change, and social justice resonate with these voters. In Wisconsin, for instance, recent polls show that she's leading by a narrow margin. This could be thanks to her focus on local issues that matter to voters there, like job growth and education. Let's not forget the power of endorsements and her connections. Harris's history as a U.S. Senator and her time as Attorney General of California have helped her build a strong network of supporters. Now let's take a step back and compare this election to past ones. It's always interesting to see how current trends line up with history, and it gives us some clues about what might happen. One of the most notable comparisons is with the 2016 and 2020 elections. Both were tight races, and each had its own set of surprises. Remember how in 2016, many people thought Hillary Clinton would win, only for Trump to secure a victory through key wins in battleground states? That election was a reminder that polls can be wrong and that the Electoral College can create unexpected outcomes. Fast forward to 2020, and we saw another close contest. This time, Biden managed to win back some of the battleground states that Trump had flipped in 2016, like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. This shift happened partly because of increased voter turnout and changes in suburban voting patterns. Suburbs that had leaned Republican for years started to tilt blue thanks to demographic changes and new priorities among voters, like healthcare and social justice. So, what about 2024? The current race has echoes of both 2016 and 2020. On one hand, you have Trump trying to reclaim the momentum he had in 2016, focusing on economic promises and appealing to rural and working-class voters. On the other hand, Harris is using a playbook similar to Biden's, emphasizing turnout in urban areas and appealing to diverse voter groups. There's also a historical parallel with Reagan's landslide win in 1984. While it's unlikely we'll see a blowout like that, some models have shown extreme scenarios where Harris or Trump could win big. These outliers are rare, but they're interesting to consider. Political experts like those at 538 point out that while these scenarios are possible, they're not probable. Still, understanding these possibilities helps us see how much is at stake. As of now, more than 70 million Americans have already cast their ballots. That's a huge number, and while it's not quite at the record-breaking level of 2020, it's still a significant turnout. But what does early voting really mean for Harris and Trump? Well, it's all about momentum and early indicators. Early voting can tell us a lot about voter enthusiasm and which side is more mobilized. For example, strong early voting numbers in states like Pennsylvania or Georgia might suggest that Democrats are turning out in force, which would be good news for Harris. On the other hand, if the data shows a strong turnout in rural areas or Republican-leaning counties, that could mean Trump's base is highly motivated. Now let's talk about the numbers. Early voting often skews towards Democrats because their campaigns typically push for mail-in and early in-person voting. Republicans tend to have a higher turnout on Election Day itself. However, this pattern isn't set in stone, especially with the changes brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 and how voting habits have evolved since then. In states like North Carolina, early voting is especially interesting to watch. It's one of the battleground states where both candidates are neck and neck. As of the latest updates, over 3.8 million votes have been cast in North Carolina, and the last day for early voting is just around the corner. Another interesting factor is the weather. In North Carolina, for example, parts of the state are still recovering from Hurricane Helene's flooding. Natural events like this can affect voter turnout, especially for in-person voting. Both campaigns are likely adjusting their strategies to account for these kinds of disruptions, whether that means ramping up digital outreach or emphasizing early voting options. You know, elections aren't just about policies and numbers, they're also about the stories and headlines that shape how people feel about the candidates. One notable moment was a rally where remarks made by Trump and speakers before him raised eyebrows. For example, a controversial statement at his Madison Square Garden rally became a talking point after comedian Tony Hinchcliffe made a remark that many found offensive. While his base may have seen it as a sign of boldness, Others saw it as divisive, pushing some swing voters away. Harris hasn't been free of controversy either. One of the more talked-about moments came when President Biden, while backing Harris's campaign, referred to some Trump supporters in a Zoom call as garbage. The White House later clarified that Biden was referring to specific hateful rhetoric, but the damage was already done in terms of optics.
President Joe Biden appearing to call Trump supporters garbage. The White House says he was referring to hateful rhetoric used against Puerto Ricans at that Trump rally on Sunday, but Republicans and Trump's campaign have condemned the president.
Absolute garbage. The most corrupt, horrible people. These are horrible people. These are sick people. We're up against very bad, evil people. It's an evil force.
Now here's something interesting. Technology is playing a bigger role in predicting election outcomes than ever before. You might be wondering, how can AI and predictive models really help us understand who might win the 2024 election? Well, they're tools that combine data from polls, demographics, past voting patterns, and even current events to make predictions. One notable example is a simulation conducted by Bonus Code Bets, using ChatGPT to analyze which candidate would win each state based on available data. Their analysis showed that Harris could narrowly win with 276 electoral college votes against Trump's 262. But remember, these are models and predictions, not guarantees. Another heavy hitter in this space is 538, which runs daily simulations to see how the election might play out. They look at 1,000 different scenarios each day, using a mix of polling data and other factors like economic conditions and voter demographics. Their most recent simulations show that both candidates have a real shot at winning, with Harris having a slight edge in popular vote projections, but Trump still holding a narrow path to an electoral college victory.
Kamala Harris's lead over Donald Trump has shrunk to just 1 percentage point, according to the latest Reuters Ipsos survey of the nation, which pushed the race at 44 to 43.
As we get closer to Election Day, understanding the electoral map and what to watch for on election night is key. Each state is categorized by different colors to show the level of confidence in the expected outcome. Here's how it works. States projected to be safe wins by 15 points or more are solidly colored, indicating little chance of an upset. States with an 15-point margin are considered likely and fairly secure, but there's still some room for change. States with a 8-point margin are marked as lean, showing that while a candidate is favored, the race is competitive. And finally, states with less than a 3-point margin are tilt states. These are the true battlegrounds where the race could go either way. Harris's stronghold includes safe blue states like California, New York, and Illinois, which together contribute a significant number of electoral votes. These are the backbone of her path to 270. Trump's secure states include deep red areas like Alabama, Idaho, and Wyoming, where his lead is well established. But as we know, the election won't be decided in these safe states. It'll come down to the battlegrounds. Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Arizona are particularly important to watch. Pennsylvania's 19 electoral votes make it one of the biggest prizes, and with current polls showing a razor-thin margin, it could go either way. Georgia, with its changing demographics and suburban growth, is another state where a few thousand votes could decide the outcome. And Arizona's shifting political landscape means it's up for grabs, despite leaning Republican in past elections. On election night, the early returns from these states will be telling. If Harris secures Pennsylvania early on, it could signal that her path to victory is strong. If Trump takes Georgia or Arizona early, it could mean he's on track to repeat his 2016 success. The same goes for other battlegrounds like Wisconsin and Michigan, where close races are expected. Keep an eye on turnout numbers, especially in urban areas for Harris and rural areas for Trump. High turnout in Philadelphia or Atlanta, for example, could be a sign that Harris is performing well. Conversely, strong turnout in rural counties in states like Michigan or Wisconsin could indicate that Trump's base is energized. Before we wrap up, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let us know what state you're in and which candidate you think will take it. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe to our channel.